There's a reason why everything works the way it does. In a corporation, let's say you work for General Electric or Ford Motor Company, General Electric cannot make law like stamped in stone. Whatever General Electric does, they don't have the power to create law. But they do have the power as a corporation to make their policy. And so they will tell you, look, it's just our policy. There's no damn law. There's no law that says it. But our policy is for you to show up at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's just our policy. And our policy says that you take off at 11:30 for lunch and you go home at 4 o'clock. That's just our policy. It's not written in stone in God's law. It's just our policy. So today, you ask any politician, what kind of law do we have in this country today? And they would tell you it's called public policy. It's a policy. It's not law. Who came up with that policy? Well, we have policy makers. Oh, really? Policy makers? Oh, okay. Yeah, they're lawmakers. They're the lawmakers. They make the policy. They don't make law. They make a policy. And it's just our policy that you do this and you do that, and you go 65 on the highway, and you do this, you park there, and these are all just our policy. And the police will see to it you abide by it. So that's where the police come in, because back in the John Wayne days, in the cowboy and Indians, there was no police. Why? Because you have a constitution. You're a free man and can do whatever you please to do. But you take care of yourself. There's no government checks. There's no government anything. You just take care of yourself. And if you want to buy a gun, buy 10 of them. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. You're free as an American. But today, you're no longer an American. You are a U.S. citizen. U.S. is a privately owned company, a corporation. It's called a municipal corporation. It's a company. Well, according to corporate law, you have to have, and this is in all corporate law, you've got to have a president of the corporation. That's just corporate law. You've got to have a vice president of the corporation, and you've got to have a secretary treasurer. Because those three guys are the main ones that handle the money. And since we are giving you permission, I'm giving you permission because I'm playing the part of God. I am the corporation, 1870. But if I'm going to give you the privilege, and you can be a corporation too, but I gave you permission. So I want 20% off the top. You understand? It's just business. When we're talking about the Federal Reserve, first thing you need to understand is where is the Federal Reserve's corporate headquarters? Because it's going to tell you something when you find out. Corporate headquarters for the Internal Revenue and the Federal Reserve is in Puerto Rico, not the United States Corporation. And why is it in Puerto Rico? Because Puerto Rico was picked a long time ago, over 1,000 years ago. It was picked by the pirates of the Caribbean. That's why today Puerto Rico houses the Federal Reserve and the Internal Revenue. It's because the Federal Reserve is today the pirates of the Caribbean. When you begin to see that this is the whole setup in the Federal Reserve and the Internal Revenue, it's just piracy. It's just the pirates of the Caribbean, and that's where they started. So what was the symbol for the pirates of the Caribbean? Well, their flag was a black flag with a skull and crossbones. And it was referred to as the Jolly Roger. Well, today, the skull and crossbones are a very important symbol used in World Freemasonry. It's used on toxic and poisonous medicines and things. Skull and crossbones basically meant death. Well, that's what piracy in the Caribbean was like. It was a very dangerous and deadly game where they were stealing on the high seas. And so when you're stealing something on the high seas, then you have to deal with an admiral, which gives us our word admiralty law. Admiralty law is the law of the high seas. England, in order to travel the world and do what they did to build their great empire, were great seafaring peoples. Their navies were next to none And so this is where the idea that even in England today, they have such a thing as an admiralty. And so it gives birth to an admiralty law, which means it's giving birth to a law based on water. Why? Because England was the masters of the seas after the Spanish. And so today, it's just interesting that the Federal Reserve and the Internal Revenue are corporate headquarters in the Caribbean. As it still is today, ships will carry their own flag so that anyone else on the sea will see that ship with that flag and understand who owns it and who's controlling that ship. Well, they developed an idea a long time ago among the pirates to fool their victims, and they would put up a flag of a country that was friendly with, I guess, the other ships coming, and so the other ships would not think anything about it until they got close enough to attack them. Then they would send up their Jolly Roger flag, the flag that represents the pirates. Then the people on the other ship know they're so close now. They thought it was a friendly ship. Now they find out it's a pirate ship. And so that's where we get the concept today of a false flag. And my goodness, there are false flags everywhere in the world that we live today. So many people think that if you trust some country or trust somebody to do something for you and he's a friend, and then one day you find out they're not your friend. They've never been your friend. Then we see the idea of a false flag. They were putting up their false colors. And we even say that kind of thing today, that, wow, I was with so-and-so last night, he showed his true colors. True colors? What do you mean, a false flag? Yeah, because he's always been nice, he's always been courteous, and last night he was horrible. So now he's showing his true colors. So that tells me he's been putting up a false flag all this time. Now we know who he really is, or how he really thinks. I would say, first of all, it's not federal, and it's not a reserve, because it isn't, there has no reserves. They just print money. And they don't really print money, they print what they call a Federal Reserve note. And it says on the Federal Reserve note, it says this note is legal tender for privates, public and private. And then it used to also say that you could take this to the bank and turn it in for real money. That's what it said on the bills. 50 to 100 years ago, it was saying on the bill, you can take this to the bank and turn it in for real money. So right off the bat, they're telling you this is not money. It represents money, but it's not money. And so you don't have to go around with gold coins buying everything. Just take the dollar bills that represents the gold coin. But the problem is the government and the founding of this country, the Constitution doesn't say that it's all right to have paper that represents money. No, money is gold and silver, period, end of the day, that's it. It's either silver or gold or it's not money. And so if you're going to print paper, and incidentally, in California, the 1848 California Constitution, there's two of them, 1848, and I think the other was 1869. But the 1848 original Constitution for California expressly says, no banking can be done within the state of California. California will not allow any banks to exist in the state of California, period. You can have private corporations who will deal within themselves, but no bank can operate within the state of California. Then later on, they had a civil war, and after the Civil War, well, things changed a little bit. So now you can have a bank in California. So many of our wars are actually economic